The power of the people will indeed change the world, the circumstances, hopefully to the positive, because that is the highest focus one could have. And the power of a person will also change them and their relationship to the world and the world around them. Both are based on the same premise, but it doesn't come from the outside. It's not an outside job, as they would say. It is an inside job. And to show what it really means, historical events since World War II will actually be able to show and demonstrate what I'm talking about, the amazingness of power. How the anagram for power was revealed to me. True power of the people evolves and unfolds organically, alchemically, without any idea of where it's heading, what it is not. It is an unseen, amazing experience of consciousness that opens and reveals life through a veil that most have never ever seen or could believe actually existed. But this is the true power of the people, and these stories will reveal that. 1961, August the 15th, 1961 specifically, in Germany, there was a very big pushback against the East Germans, and in order to keep them in line, the Berlin Wall was erected that broke West Germany and East Germany in two. East Germany and Eastern Europe were known as communist, and West Germany and Western Europe were perceivably democratic. There was a grace period of 2 days to allow people to go back and forth across the wall as they were building it. And then on the end of the second day, all those avenues were shut. They were shut for 28 years. And families were broken apart. Couples were destroyed. The fear and the courage mixed together of East Germans wanting so desperately to have freedom from the oppressiveness of the communist regimes of the time, were willing to risk everything, most specifically their lives, by trying to trick and scale the wall, only to be brutally shot, usually in the back. And this is not just one or two, this is thousands of people over 28 years that were killed trying to get into the West, to be free. There are many a movie and a documentary on them. Highly recommend you watch them. These are real life. Germany and Europe had just come out of World War II. It finished in 1946. This was 1961. They were still rebuilding all of the cities in Germany, in France, in England, in all the other countries, in Poland and all of the other countries. They had been so decimated and so many millions of people killed. The wars are about power. Who has the money? Who has the ammunition? Who has the tanks and the wherewithal and the troops to annihilate somebody else? This is its most brutal, and this is what the historical view of power is about. And that is what we're playing out today. And of course, you've always got bad guys and you've always got supposedly good guys. But really, when you break it down, there are moments when everybody's good, but there are far more moments when everybody is bad. And that includes US and Russia and China and England and Germany and France and you name it. Every country has their history of abuses for perceivable power, which always entails control and money. So how do you look at the story of power throughout world history, or recent history, let me put it that way, and reconcile it with something positive? I'm going to give you a very, very different view to probably most everybody else. It was November the 9th, 1989. Was the day the wall came down, or began to come down. But let's go back, and this is where I've done some research quite a few years ago on a television program I was doing on it, that take you back 10 days. And in the research I was doing, I was reading all sorts of stories, first-hand accounts and historical accounts and everything. And it all came back down to 10 days before. There was this funny little ripple, an inkling, an egging of different people in Germany, both sides, East and West, and also in other parts of Europe, that the anticipation of something's happening, something's coming down. We don't know what it is, but something's is evolving. And of course, you have to understand that this was before computers and the internet and the communications that we have today. So this was all done through the ethers of consciousness. A different consciousness back then than the consciousness we sadly have to work through all of the matrices now. I'll explain that another time. The inkling, the moving, the something's happening, and 10 days, 9 days, 8 days, 7 days, it was building, and people were getting edgy, and they traveled a little bit more, and they talked a bit more, and sometimes in secret, and like, what's going on? What's going on? Do you get the same feeling? And then it was about 7 days, 6 days beforehand, that inkling started becoming palpable. And people wrote that we started knowing we had to go to Berlin. What's going on in Berlin? No one knew. And this is all through Eastern Europe. They were getting the same inkling. We have to go to Berlin. We have to go to East Germany. Why? Nobody knew. And it was building. And then 5 days before, it built even further. And I get very emotional when I'm remembering this, because it's very real. And I saw the damage as a child of the bombing after the war and what it had done to these countries. Germany was horrid at that point. So, horrible in the destruction. Excuse me, let me qualify that. And so this momentum is building, and people are going, I'm going to Berlin, I'm going to Berlin. I don't know why. Why? Can I come with you? Yes, of course you can come with me. And then people from Scandinavia, and from France, and from England, and from South America, and from Australia, they're getting the same message. Go to Berlin. If you can, go to Berlin. Focus on Berlin. Something's happening in Berlin. And it's coming, and it's coming, and it's coming. And both sides. And by 2-3 days beforehand, there were thousands and thousands of people on both sides of the wall, lined up, and this is a huge, huge area. And they were lined up, and it was this unknown something was going to manifest. And it was becoming euphoric in the anticipation. And they had not a clue if it was going to be a disaster or not. The day before, building and more people were coming to the wall on both sides, all the way through. People were walking, riding their horses, their carts, anything that they could to get to whatever was going to be happening. And I recommend that you go and look at newsreels and photographs of all different places, because I read some of the government and views on what happened and stories about this is what happened, and that does not match exactly with what the people were saying. And so the 9th of November, 1989, and just let me intersperse this, 9/11 and 11/9. Isn't that interesting? An interesting mirror. Patterns don't lie. So the day of, the millions and millions of people are euphoric. It's what is happening. Apparently, the night before, or it was probably 2 days before, something was going on in the West German parliament that was new changes in laws and documents, and something that was coming through and which was never ever expected. And I can't tell you what it was. I do not remember what it was, but it was something monumental as far as the German government had decided to change a program, a law or an order, or whatever you want to call it. And the day before, the evening before the 9th, they signed into law and released something for the people of Germany in a very positive way. The news got out the following day, and I found a picture of a story on one of the story threads of a man with a sledgehammer, and the person who wrote this was present when this euphoria had built to such a crescendo. The man with the sledgehammer swung and hit the wall. And that was the beginning of the wall coming down. They banged and banged, and a brick came out, and it was like the people knew, we have got the power to pull it down, and they began pulling the wall down physically. Both sides. It was up for 28 years, and for those who are familiar with astrology, and most specifically Saturn and Saturn returns, the Saturn return in a person's chart comes at the time a person is 27 and a half to 28 and a half, 29. It's sort of depending on where you're, sort of how your life astrology plays out. But it's a 28-year cycle. And then the new cycle begins after that Saturn return, after the birthday of, say, of being 28. And this is the time where people make massive decisions, massive life-changing decisions. Marriage and babies and releasing a job, taking a new job, new careers, new type of wild